Hello, it's Gregor from the yard here today, and I'm really excited to be able to make a video for you all on how to make my chocolate fudge cake. I hope everyone's getting on well, and I can't wait to see everybody when we get to go back down to the yard in person. But for now, I hope this is a good fun thing to do at home, and I hope you enjoy. I hope to be making more videos in the future, so we'll see if that happens, but for now we'll start with this. And this is going to be my recipe on how to make chocolate fudge cake. So first I'll show you the ingredients that I've got. I've got 225 grams of self-raising flour, 225 grams of caster sugar, 225 grams of softened butter. I've just left this butter out for a few hours before I started baking so it's nice and soft. You can also put it in the microwave if it's a little bit hard, just be careful not to melt it. And I've got 4 eggs. I've also got some cocoa powder to make it nice and chocolatey later, because the more chocolatey the better. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my big baking bowl here, and I'm going to get my sieve like that. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get my flour and my sugar, and I'm going to just sieve it into the bowl like this. This was always one of my favourite parts of baking. I just find it very fun. I actually started baking when I was really young. I was when I was at school. My parents were often working, so when I would go back, I'd go back home with my grandparents, and they were the ones that got me into baking in the first place, and I've loved doing it ever since. You also get nice tasting things afterwards, so it's always a bonus. So that's my 225 grams of self-raising flour in, and now I'm going to put my 225 grams of caster sugar in, which goes in nice and easily. Next, I'm going to get my cocoa powder. My favourite one to use is just the one you get in any shops, just Cadbury's. I think it tastes really good and you get a nice sweet cake with it. And I'm just going to take about 2 tablespoons of the cocoa powder, like this. And put that in. That's my second one. And that's going in through the sieve as well. Now, make sure you've washed your hands before you've done this. I washed my hands very carefully, so they're nice and clean. This could be quite a fun recipe to make with your family, with your friends, when they're allowed to come around to the house eventually. So what I'll show you here, what I've got now in my bowl is I've got my flour, my caster sugar, and my cocoa powder, which I'm just going to give a mix. It's okay to make a little bit of mess. I think often a little bit of mess just shows you've had a good time, so try not to worry too much about that. A little bit of flour will come flying out the bowl. Okay, and what you should have after all of that is you should have it all mixed together in the bowl. It'll look sort of light brown coloured actually. You can leave that there. Excellent. We're getting there. The recipe doesn't take very long, and that's one of the good things about it. It's quite a quick recipe, and you can make quite a nice tasty chocolate cake at the end of it. The next thing I'm going to do is I've got my butter, which is all in cubes. I'm just going to squash that down a little bit and make it into sort of a smooth paste. I actually think this is one of my favourite jobs. It's very satisfying. I don't know what everyone else has been getting up to in lockdown, but I've been doing a lot of baking. Probably a little bit too much, but can never go wrong. But I've been missing everyone terribly at the yard, and I can't wait to eventually see everybody again. So I really do hope you enjoy watching this video and maybe can make something out of it and have a good time. Okay, there we go. So that's our butter now, which is all sort of in a nice paste, and we're just going to put the whole lot of it into the bowl with the rest of the mixture. So that's the butter going into the bowl. Right, I'll show you what that looks like now. So now we've just got our butter, our caster sugar, our self-raising flour, and our cocoa powder in the bowl. There we go. And there's only one more ingredient now, the eggs. Okay, so I've got 4 eggs here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to crack them into the bowl. Now, if anyone feels like they need any help cracking eggs, you can always ask a parent or maybe an older sibling, sister or brother. But it's quite good fun. Just be careful because it can be a little bit sharp sometimes, the egg shells. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my fork. And I'm just going to, oh, maybe not, I'll try not to spill it over the side. I'm going to get my fork and I'm just going to burst the egg yolks. And I'm just going to mix it up in the bowl until it all looks about the same colour and texture. And I'll show you what that looks like. It should just look like that. Okay, I'm just going to add these eggs into the mix now. Excellent. That was nearly a bad joke, but that was a mistake, I promise. And what you'll have now is you'll have a bowl with your eggs, your butter, and your flour, sugar, and cocoa powder all in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start mixing. One of the best bits. At first, I just sort of mix it quite slowly to get all the ingredients to combine together. So just mix it slowly. Okay, starting to smell like chocolate cake now. Excellent. That's what it looks like now. So it's sort of all combined together, but we need to now start mixing it a little bit faster, just to really get everything mixed in. I actually learned how to make chocolate cake with my grandmother when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I think it's been my favourite ever since. Although I think she does something differently to me because hers always still tastes better than mine, annoyingly. Okay, there we go, excellent. We're nearly done now. So as you can see now, that's our batter. And it looks nice and thick and it's all mixed together. And the last thing I want to do is I'm just going to give it a really fast stir for about a minute or two. And what that does is that gets lots of air into the mixture, so when you bake it, it goes nice and fluffy. Okay, so there we go, and now all we need to do is we need to put it in the tin, and then we need to bake it, and then we get to eat cake. Excellent. So I'll show you my baking tin, which I've already made a bit of mess on. I have just chosen this baking tin. It doesn't really matter the size or shape of it, just something that's not really small or something that's really big, something in the middle, and it should be fine. What I've done is I've covered it in baking paper, but if you don't have any baking paper, you can also just get some butter and you can rub the butter all over the inside of the tin and make sure there's a nice thick layer of that, so when it cooks it doesn't stick to the tin. Okay, so I'll just put this in the baking tin now. I'm just going to take the mixture like this and I'm just going to drop it all in the tin, and I'll show you the tin afterwards. There we go, excellent. Okay, so that's our mixture in our tin now, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spread it around so it's nice and flat and nice and even. Okay, so that's us done actually with the first part, and as you can see here in the baking tin, I've just got all the batter. I've laid it out nice and even and flat, so when it rises it'll rise nice and flat as well. I've put my oven at 200 degrees, and that's because I have an electric oven. Okay, so just to clarify, that's 180 degrees on a fan oven, 200 degrees on an electric oven. Cook it for about 30 minutes at first and then come and check it. Now what I will say is that ovens are hot, so depending on how old you are, you might need to bake with an adult or an older sibling. Just make sure you're being safe because the ovens are hot. So I'm going to put my oven gloves on. Quite nice and fashionable. I'm just going to go put my cake in the oven, and I'll see you later for part 2. Thank you. So my chocolate cake has been in the oven and it's finished cooking, and I've also left it out to cool. But first off, here's the cake. It should hopefully smell nice, and I'm really trying hard not to eat any of it before I went back on the video. But here you go, here's the chocolate cake. And I went to check it at 30 minutes and it wasn't quite ready. It actually needed another 10 to 15 minutes, so overall my cake took 45 minutes to cook. And it really changes just depending on on day to day, so I would just advise just to keep checking it until it looks ready. Mine is nice and goldeny brown on the top, and what you can do to check if it's ready is you can get a knife. Just be careful with a knife because they are sharp, or you can get a cocktail stick and you can put it right through the top like this. And when it comes out, it should be nice and clean, and you might get bits of crumbs in it, but that's okay as long as there's no sort of wet batter. It should be that means it's ready. So now that our cake's ready and that it's cooled, it's on a cooling rack here, I'm going to get on to making some chocolate butter icing. If you don't want to do butter icing, you can also just use the icing sugar with some water, and you can make the icing that way. And that's quite a quick and easy recipe as well. You just get some icing sugar and you add some water to it, and it's really quick. But I'm going to make butter icing, and I'll show you how to make that. There's only 3 ingredients for chocolate butter icing, so it's nice and easy, and I'll show you them just now. I'll just put my cake over here. Okay, so here are 3 ingredients. We've got icing sugar, and I'll tell you how much there is in a second. So we've got icing sugar, and we've got butter again, which is softened. I've just left it out. But again, if it's a bit hard and you haven't had time to leave it out of the fridge to get soft, you can just try to microwave it, but just be careful to try not to melt it. I'd recommend microwaving it butter on defrost, not full temperature. And finally, cocoa powder again, my favourite. Okay, that's excellent. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just mush up the butter. Okay, that's our butter all squished up now. Okay, so that's our butter. In terms of how much to use, I've got 200 grams of butter and I've got 400 grams of icing sugar. The only thing to know about butter icing is that you need twice as much icing sugar as butter. So you can make any amount you want, but in this case I've gone for 200 grams of butter and 400 grams of icing sugar. So I'm going to do the same as last time. I'm going to get my sieve, and I'm going to sieve my icing sugar into my big baking bowl, which I've cleaned again so it's nice and shiny. So I'm just going to add all the icing sugar into the bowl and put it through a sieve to make sure there's no lumps. It does, you get, see that puff of smoke, you get quite a big puff up when you put the icing sugar in the bowl. There we go. I can taste the icing sugar in the air. So I'm just going to sieve this into the pan. The easiest way I find to sieve is just to hold my hand out like that and tap the sieve against it, and everything comes through quite quickly. There we go, excellent. And that's our icing sugar done. So what we've got now, and I'll show it to you, is we've got our icing sugar in the big bowl, but there are no lumps now and it's all nice and smooth. Next, I'm going to add the butter just on top. Excellent. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I've got my butter and my icing sugar. I'm going to get my spoon and I'm going to very slowly start to mix it together, because if you mix it too quickly, all the icing sugar will come flying out and it'll taste nice, but it'll be all over you and all over the kitchen. So I'm just going to stir it together very slowly I can't really tip the bowl so you can see it just now because the icing sugar will fall out, but I'll tip it over to you in a second. There we go. So what you'll have now is you'll have a bowl of the butter and icing sugar, and it's all going to be sort of combined together in sort of small little chunks. And this is the really fun bit because you get to stick your hands in, so make sure your hands are clean and you've washed them. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stick my hands in the bowl and I'm going to start squeezing it together with my hands. And really quickly, you'll start to see that bigger chunks start to form together. This is really fun because it's a very soft, squishy texture and it goes right between your fingers. Okay, our butter icing's nearly ready now. Now it's time to make it chocolatey. So I'm going to get a new spoon and I'm going to get our cocoa powder here. Here we go. Most important ingredient. And I'm just going to take 1 big tablespoon of cocoa powder. Like that. And actually I'll need to get this back and I'll put it through the sieve. Maybe a little bit extra for good luck, you can't go wrong. I just put in a little extra bit, not a full spoon there. There we go. Okay, so now I'm just going to mix it up finally with my spoon again, now that it's all in bigger, harder lumps there. You'll see it right there. I'll tilt the camera a little bit for you as well. So that's bigger, harder lumps of icing and butter, and then we're going to add in the cocoa powder, and hopefully it'll get nice and chocolatey. Okay, excellent. There we go. We're done. Right, and actually, that's not taken very long at all, but that's our icing. It should be nice and thick and smooth, like that. It should be difficult to get off the spoon. There we go, got a little bit off. I'm just going to get one last little mix. And you just need to basically make sure everything's mixed together. And one of the most important parts of baking, giving it a taste, I think. Yummy, if I do say so myself. Okay, so that's us ready to ice our cake. Now hopefully the mixture shouldn't be too hard, so it should be quite easy to ice our cake. I'm just going to move a couple things out of the way because once again I've got my workstation all messy. Okay, so I've got my cake here now. Here we go. And here's my icing. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take the icing, big lump of it, and put it directly on top of the cake, which is now cooled down. There we go. So I'll show you what that looks like. That's our cake with our big lump of icing on top. I'm then going to get a knife again. I use knives that are quite not very sharp, but just be careful if you're using a sharp knife. And I'm going to be spreading it on the top with a knife. Try not to knock the cake off. So I'm just finishing spreading it out on the top of the cake. I'll show you what it looks like in just 1 second. Okay, and there we go. Our cake is iced now. Excellent. I'll show you what it looks like. So there we go. There's our cake with our icing on top. I've just put it on the top. Oh, careful. As I said, I quite like the baking, but I think my technology skills could do with an improvement. We'll get there one day. As I said, that's our cake with the icing on top. If you want to put icing down the sides, you can do that as well. It's completely up to you. And then one of the best bits is decorating. You can decorate the cake however you like, really. But what I'm going to do today is I've got some Maltesers to put on top. But you can put whatever you like on top of the cake, and you get lots of great options in the shops. But I'm just going to decorate it with Maltesers myself. Just pop some Maltesers on top and I'll show you what the finished cake looks like. And there we go. There's our finished chocolate cake. So we've got our chocolate cake recipe from part 1 with our chocolate butter icing and our Maltesers to decorate. But like I said, you can do whatever you want with decoration. You can make a different type of icing, you can decorate with other things, just whatever you fancy. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you all have a lovely day, whatever day it is, and I can't wait to see you all soon. So for now, goodbye.